All right. Hey, everyone. Mark here. Let me adjust this over here. All right. Mark here, Mark P Markets. Thank you for joining me for another Bitcoin analysis session. We have quite a few things to talk about here. All right. So, in case you're new, hey, I want to welcome you all. Let me explain how this works. So, first, I'm going to go over the economic calendar since it's the beginning of the week. I mean, today we had a market holiday, so things may be a little unusual as a result of the lack of volume, but we still need to go over that economic calendar to be prepared. Okay. So, we're going to go over that quickly first. Then, I'm going to present to you my Bitcoin analysis, right? We're going to look at relevant support and resistance levels, and we're going to look at some potential scenarios that can unfold this week. And then after that, I'm going to go over your questions, okay? So I am simulcasting here on TradingView. Let me just pull this up and let me just make sure I can see you guys. So if you have a question about a stock or a market, now would be a good time to ask in the channel. All right, you put your question there. If I missed your question, I apologize. Try asking it again. Also, if you can, do me a favor, one symbol per person so I can try to answer as many as possible, okay? This session is typically about an hour. That's where I'm trying to keep that. So let me just say hello to a few of my regulars really quick. All right, I got Tillin, good to see you. Armin, all right, Alex from Romania. I love Romania. Mr. Plow, good to see you. All right, Glenn, DWK, Sherbak. All right, hey, Bill, how are you? Long time no see. Raman, hey, good to see you. Stian, all right, all my regulars, cool. So again, thanks for joining me, you guys. All right, so next, just two quick announcements. First, for those of you that follow me on Wednesdays, I am not going to be streaming this Wednesday, okay? So I'm canceling Wednesday's session. I'm just letting you know now. I'll probably put this message on YouTube again so you guys can see that I am canceling Wednesday's session. Okay, so let's make sure that that's clear. Second, I talked about my auto setups the week before. Again, this is not an advertisement. I'm just updating members that have been looking for this information, and I might as well. It's just convenient for me to update everyone here. So I have the stock auto setups working. It's primarily for options, but I mentioned one for Bitcoin and altcoins that I'm expecting to have running this week. Okay, auto setups are nothing more than a screener that when certain criteria is met, it then produces a result that I can push to particular channels that most of you have access to. Okay, so I'm just letting you know the Bitcoin and altcoin one should be running this week. Now, the way it's going to work, it's going to be a little more sophisticated than the stock one. All right, the stock one is looking for simpler criteria, where the Bitcoin altcoin one is going to be a little bit more robust, I guess you can say. Okay, so again, you guys look out for that. If you have any questions about the auto setups, let me know. You guys know where to find me. Okay, so with that being said, also, if you like my video, if you like my content, please do me a favor, press the like button, or also wherever you are, press the subscribe button, whichever channel you're on. Also, make sure to check the links in the description, especially if you'd like to get into the free portion of my Discord community. All right, so with all that being said, let's get into this, right? So this is for educational purposes only. For investment advice, please consult a licensed investment advisor. All right, now let's make this chart bigger. Actually, before I do that, let me ask you guys a question. Right, today is Monday. Who has checked the economic calendar? TradingView has an economic calendar, and there are also other economic calendars that you can check. Have you guys checked it? Are there any events that are worth checking or being prepared for this week? You guys let me know. I like doing this exercise because instead of me just looking at the calendar and telling you guys what to think, you guys should actually get in the habit of checking the calendar. Tell me what you think, and I can let you know if it's really a worthwhile event to be anticipating or not. That's how you learn, right? Instead of me just telling you, it goes in one ear and right out the other. You're like, oh yeah, whatever, NFP, who cares, right? So anything this week, you guys tell me. Anything on the economic calendar. By the way, if you want to share what country or what city you are from, that's always a fun fact. Okay, some guys just know to do that, but if you're new to the stream, it's always fun to see. I'm streaming from the greater New York City area, also known as Northern New Jersey, right? Which can explain why I talk funny sometimes. All right, so anything, you guys, anything on the economic calendar? Maybe make sure this chat is still working here. You guys on YouTube, can you guys still hear me? Want to make sure that you guys are still working. All right, so what's on the economic calendar, people? Anything? It's possible that the economic calendar has nothing. Also, on that same note, what about any quarterly reports worth mentioning this week by any chance? Come on, you guys. You guys should be doing this work. All right, I know the answers, but you guys need to know the answers. So, anything? I don't see anything in the chat. I'm hoping the chat's still working. All right, you guys. So, you guys tell me. Can you guys hear me? Everyone's shy now. No one's talking. On TradingView, you're long Bitcoin, okay? Got 3 confirmations. First from the MA. Okay. That's interesting. Mr. Minirmarin, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. We're going to be talking about that here in a moment. But honestly, I don't think it's a good place to be long, okay? Okay, cool. You guys, so I don't see any calendar results. Is there anything? Anything on the calendar? Come on, you guys. I need to know. You guys should know. In fact, all my regulars should be prepared when I do my stream each Monday. You guys should know. You guys should be able to just rattle off the answers, which means you're not checking the economic calendar. Okay, and that can be a problem because if there's some surprise news, some economic news, it can cause a dramatic reaction in the market. And you will be sitting there like, I don't understand what's going on. And maybe there was some kind of report. Maybe there was an FOMC. Maybe there was a meeting with Chairman Powell or something. Okay, and he said something funny. You don't know what to look for in the economic calendar. Well, see, that's exactly it. That's why I'm asking, because you should just pick out something that might look important, and I can tell you. So typically, what you're looking for are anything with inflationary sensitive data, right? Like non-farm payrolls, CPI, PPI, retail sales, right? Do we have any of those? The answer should be no, because we're in the 3rd week now of February. Any type of interest rate decisions, and it could be for another country, but typically it's the US, right? The FOMC meeting that you want to be paying most attention to. FOMC minutes, Chris says. Okay, good answer. And other things, like maybe there's another bank is coming out with an interest rate decision, right? That's what you should be paying attention to on the economic calendar. Now, I'm willing to bet dozens of other fake gurus never go over this with you because they don't understand the importance, all right? So I'm telling you this as basically a factor that you need to be aware of in order to mitigate your risk and be prepared for a binary event that can be dramatic, right? Comes out of nowhere. So let's see what we got, right? So Chris says FOMC minutes. See, good. So you guys are learning though. FOMC, still learning what these are. You should know what these are. If you're putting money on the line, you need to know these. This is basic baby stuff. Like this is like baby nonsense stuff. You need to know this. So people, you understand, people are taking risks and they may be taking trades right into an FOMC meeting or something, not realizing what can happen, right? So this is why I'm teaching you guys this. So we have here FOMC, right? So we have FOMC meeting minutes. The minutes usually come out on a Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, around that time usually. And they're usually, the market knows what's going to be in the meeting minutes because it was at the meeting, right? But sometimes there may be a surprise in the meeting minutes that the market had forgotten about or is not expecting, and it can cause a movement. But typically, the meeting minutes don't have a big dramatic effect, but it's good to be aware of, especially if you're involved in stocks intraday, especially. Okay, GDP, is that US GDP, Pop, or is that another country? Because GDP for the US, and then that's not that's a number worth keeping an eye on, but it's not a big deal. Okay, core CPI, DWK says yes. What day is core CPI coming out? That is a consumer price index number. That's an inflationary number, right? So if that report comes out too hot, right, that can cause movements because the Federal Reserve uses this information and it can affect their decision making, right? So if inflation is still hot, that means they're not going to be doing anything dovish anytime soon. That's what we have to take. That's how we have to interpret that. And we have to see how the market interprets that on top of what we think, because what we think really doesn't matter. Okay. What matters is how the market prices it in. Okay, so GDP Q4. Okay, first revision. All right, so it's US, right? It's a US number. So GDP is really how you look at is the economy in recession or not, right? That's usually what that number is used for. You can even look at that in the business cycle, right? The business cycle model, the Pring-Turner model that I've talked about before, and that's basically what it's looking at, right? It's a function of GDP that determines whether we are in a recession or in a growth type of environment, expansion, and that's going to affect how you manage your risk. That's really the whole idea behind that. All right, so you guys got it. All right, that's how I'd like to go over the economic calendar. Normally, I can just rattle these things off to you and say, pay attention to this, pay attention to that. But by you doing the work yourself, I just made you guys struggle. You went look at the calendar, you're like, oh, I'm not sure, right? Now this is going to stick, right? That's how you learn. That's how learning takes place. Anyway, all right, so let's move along. And let's start talking about this Bitcoin situation. So I have a guy here on the TradingView side, and he says to me, he's long, got confirmations from the MA, breakthrough, and candlestick. Okay, so while if that's a smaller time frame, okay, that makes sense because the trend here is clearly, the short-term trend is clearly bullish, right? But here's the thing, there's a lot of arguments. If you look at the title of this stream, I call it, at resistance, Bitcoin at resistance, higher prices less likely, right? Now, so why would I write such a title? Well, for one, I'm trying to get people to watch, but for two, here's the thing. You're long in a resistance area. That 25K is clearly a resistance. Now, the stock market is closed today. So Bitcoin is kind of free to do its own nonsensical things, right? So if this thing breaks out, it is possible that this thing can make its way to 28K. 28K is the next resistance on this, right? That's where it is. All right, that's historical resistance right there. I'm not going to zoom out on the chart, but that's where I got that from. It's not a number that I just randomly put there. So that's where it could possibly go. But here's the thing. What is going to drive that? Okay, if there are any negative surprises, this is such a high potential area. This whole area is such a high potential area for a bearish reversal. In fact, the sell signal appeared yesterday when I wrote about the sell signal in my TradingView article. Let me make the chart bigger. I'm sorry, you guys. Hold on. Let me make the chart bigger here. All right, there we go. Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry, I forgot. I whatever. Okay, let's move along. So again, here we are, right? This 25K, that line, that's resistance. We've cleared this resistance, okay. But this is, as many of you know, this is failed high territory, right? The chances of this thing failing here are high, especially if the stock market turns the wrong way. Now, like I was saying with my TradingView article that I wrote yesterday, I mentioned specifically this candle, this red candle, right? Because that's what we had developing when I was writing the article. And I said, if we took out the low of the candle, which was taken out today, the low of the candle is 24,251. All right. So the candle closed, right? That red pin bar off of a resistance, which is an aggressive sell signal. It's aggressive because you're shorting into a bullish trend, right? So the chances of that trade working out are going to be less likely from that standpoint, or you should expect less from it. Now, the signal goes off, and the thing is, if you took that short, you're looking at least minimum. This is the risk you're looking at, right? Which is the size of this candle. The low of the candle is 24,251. The high is 25,202, right? So what are you looking at? About 1,000 points. That's the minimum risk. Okay, so you're looking at like maybe 1,500 points because you have to give it a little room. Now here's the thing. So if you took that trade, let's say you took that trade, and you were anticipating maybe a pullback into this area, which is what I talked about. Something like that would be a reasonable pullback for a short, an aggressive short, which would be more appropriate for a smaller time frame, like a 4-hour. But here's the thing. If you took that trade, and this is the candle you have now, that is the wrong candle that you should be seeing, right? This tells you that that short is not working. You should not see a conflicting signal. This is a bullish pin bar. So now this takes us to the long side, right? So the short side is pretty much conflicted. If you're short, if I was short, I'm not short. And I was thinking about calling this short. And then I saw some stuff and I'm like, you know what? I'm not calling it short. I'm just not going to call that short. I want to see a better signal, right? So then we got this, and I'm like, all right, forget it, staying away from this thing. But if I was short, I would be looking to get out. There's no way I would hold on to that, because if this thing follows through, you're looking at 3,000 points of risk. Not worth it. All right. In this game, especially in a very uncertain environment, you have to have the mentality of taking your losses as quickly as possible, okay, and not let these things linger. Like when something bearish is occurring, right? When you get a bearish signal like that pin bar back here, the next series of candles should be indecisive or bearish, not decisively bullish, which is what this is. So when this candle closes, the high of that candle, which is 25,101, if that's taken out, that becomes a new long signal, right? So the guy here that's long, that's good for you, okay? If that follows through. Now, here's the thing though, bigger picture, so I just started out saying that there's not much potential left. And here's why I say that. So we may get the long signal here, it's possible, but is this thing gonna follow through? We have, when I zoom back here, right, and we go back to these lows, back to December, November, back here, and we count the waves. And I've been arguing about this now for a couple of weeks. There are 5 waves clearly here, okay? This section right here is wave 1. This section right over here is wave 2. This section over here is wave 3, all right? This over here is wave 4, and this is wave 5. Now, wave 5 possibly can extend, but normally when there's a clear-cut 5-wave structure, which is what we have here, I mean, it's crystal clear, then most likely the move is over, okay? So expecting another 3,000 points now is a bad idea on this time frame, in my opinion. So what to do? If you're working on smaller time frames, if you're going long on smaller time frames, or you're trying to short this on smaller time frames, okay, fine. But this is a tough spot for longs, and it's a tough spot for shorts, okay, at this moment. If it produces another sell signal over the next couple of days, then that would be a much more compelling short. Why? Because we are in an area where a short signal is likely to develop. And if it does develop, we're looking at the beginning of a wave 2, okay? Now, wave 2 can be anywhere in this entire area. Wave 2 typically can retrace 100% of wave 1. So if this is wave 1, then it's possible that wave 2 can retrace the entire thing and still be bullish, believe it or not. Okay, it's going to fool a lot of people, of course, but that's it. What I'm saying here is not because I'm trying to give you a forecast and saying, whoa, wave 2 is going to go all the way back to 100% of wave 1. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you have to account for that type of risk. That's why buying here is such a bad idea, because the risk is so high. Okay, so if you're going to buy this thing, these are the levels you should be looking for, right? Failed low in this area right there. That would be a great spot for a new long, possibly, because you have a failed low. And that would be a possible wave 2 bottom if you can get some sort of complex structure there, right? If it just pulls back straight there and gives you like a green candle, that's not enough. You need to see this thing at least develop 3 legs. That's a typical corrective structure, right? And we don't even have 1 leg in that yet. So I'd want to see 3 legs as part of that wave 2. Keep in mind, it could be more complex than that, but we're starting off with, you want to see 3 legs. And that's usually like an A, B, and C. And then you can look for the reversal, the bullish reversal coming from there, okay? This was very tight here, right? This was very tight. There wasn't a clear-cut A, B, C, not on this time frame. And then 5, just, that's wave 5. So when it comes to like wave counts, you don't want to get overly complicated, and you don't want to try to get like every little letter in there, because that will be very confusing and often conflicting. Look for the broader structure, and it has to be crystal clear. This is crystal clear. Usually I don't talk about wave counts unless they are crystal clear, and that is. So that's my argument as to why buying this thing now, whether it's a swing trade or an investment, is a high risk thing, because you're buying a resistance. It's that simple. All right. If you're looking at day trades, it's another story. I mean, day trades, this thing can test the 25s very easily. And as a day trader, you're only looking for a couple of 100 points anyway. you're really not looking for more than that. So same on the short side, right? The whole idea of day trades is it keeps your risk away. It mitigates your risk from this larger magnitude. That's the whole idea behind that. And because of that, theoretically, you should be able to trade a larger position. Okay, so let me see what kind of questions I have. Does that make sense to you guys? So let me know if you have any questions about the Bitcoin analysis. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to look and see what other questions that I have. Okay, so Tillin, how come you're not particularly bearish? Okay, so Tillin brings up a good question here. I'm not particularly bearish, but the bond market. Okay, so the bond market, and I mentioned this too, I've been talking about this. The bond market is particularly bearish. Let's talk about that, Tillin, because that's a very, very good point and something we keep an eye on. I am generally, that's why I'm so suspicious, right? This right here is not bullish, right? Bond prices are selling. Look, we tested this support, tried to give us a little bounce there. It's not following through yet. Either way, the bond market rates have basically returned to a height that they were, back in December, right? We're basically at the December highs as far as rates. If this thing continues lower, and this momentum is bearish, if this thing continues lower and starts pushing here, then you're going to start to see rate pressure, right, weigh on these things. Tillin, the reason why I think we're not seeing the pressure is because the market is used to these levels. The market has seen these levels before. So the market's like, whatever. The rates have been here before, no big deal. But the pressure will come or mount when we start pushing lows, right? So that's why I think we're seeing this irrational behavior from the market. The market's ignoring this. If it continues, that's when you really should be more concerned. But that's why I'm not dramatically bearish, but that's why I'm not bullish. Because with this move in the bonds, and if the bonds continue, Bitcoin is not going much further. As much as people say, it's funny, someone pointed out that some very high profile professional investors, I'm not talking about the clowns like on these platforms, I'm talking about well-known people, they come out and they say, Bitcoin's going to 1 million. Yeah, thanks for letting us know when it's at 25K. How come these people don't come out when it's at 17K? How come they don't come out, with those ridiculous forecasts? Never listen to those people, ever. Because they're not there to help you. There's usually an agenda behind what they say. You have to be able to make your own judgments. Don't use these expert traders or these expert investors to help you formulate an opinion. An opinion is the worst thing you can have. All right. The bond market right now is not agreeing with any of this. Let's take a look at the NASDAQ real quick. Okay. Now the stock market's closed today. So let's pull up the NASDAQ. And let's see what's going on here, right? So the NASDAQ recently, it's coming off of this rally. We have a double top on the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ was closed today, okay? On Friday, it closed slightly negative or whatever. Is this Friday? Where's the date on here? 16th? Yeah, so it closed minus 76 points on Friday. This is today's candle. It's just barely red. But the thing is, if we see this low taken out this week, if we see that, right, we have a double top in the NASDAQ. We have a bond market that is leaning toward the bearish side, meaning rates are rising, meaning pressure is mounting. If those bonds push those lows, look where this thing is positioned. Would you go long here? No, I wouldn't, right? No way. So, as a day trader, it's another story. But bigger picture swing trades, you're going to buy this thing. If those bonds push, this thing breaks, right? Party's over again, right? And we're going into March, which is typically a bearish month. Keep that in mind, seasonally speaking, right? So a pullback into March is not all that unusual. Let's just put it that way. So that's the NASDAQ, right? And S&P is going to give us a similar look because they all trade together. Right, all these indices trade together. Look at the S&P, okay? Double top on the S&P, trying to sell off, trying to break supports, and we have a bond market that agrees with this position, right? And that's the key thing. I've always talked about the bond market, and so Tillin, you make a very important point, and that's why you have to be extremely cautious. That's why I am not one to be in a hurry to be buying Bitcoin, especially on the longer time frames, okay? Because Bitcoin's going to suffer just like everything else. if those rates continue. Okay, cool. So good question. Let me jump over that. I spent a lot of time. Let me jump over to TradingView over here. Let me see what you guys are saying. So, okay, GDP. Okay, hey guys. All right, I don't see any questions there. Is that it? Is that all you guys have? Let me refresh that. Let me make sure I'm seeing this correctly. Okay, yeah. So let me know on TradingView. Let me know if you guys have any other questions. All right, now's a good time to ask. Okay, let me go over on the other channel here and let me see what you guys are saying. So Alex, CS, all right, from the NYSE. It's Switzerland's banks. All right, let's take a look. CS. And you're saying they're in trouble. So let's take a look at a weekly chart first. Okay. I mean, certainly not a pretty chart. Oh, man. Yeah, they're in trouble. All right. Look at that. All I see are lower highs and lower lows. Look at the weekly sell-off. Look, starting from this pin bar. $3.42 was the low, and it took that out over the previous week. This thing looks horrible. So you're thinking, you said they won't go. Okay, so you're saying that they'll be bailed out, or that's what you would think would be reasonable, right? They're not going to let such a bank go out of business. That may be the case, but buying it with anticipation of that news, it's that's a big gamble, because for one, unless you have inside information, you're basically fighting something that has a lot of negative or a lot of bearish momentum behind it. Clearly, I mean, look at this gap over the previous week, right? And since that gap, look at this price action. Inside bars, basically, this thing can't get out of its own way. This thing is about to break these supports over here. So it's too early for longs, in my opinion. If you believe, like, in the bailout thing, keep in mind, this thing could go to $1. It can go to 50 cents, right? So if you're going to get into it small bites, small size, until something relevant comes along, or at least you start breaking resistance levels, at least, right? You don't have anything. Not one resistance is cleared here. Now, keep in mind, even if some positive news starts coming out, look at this. There was some positive news, right, recently, relatively recently, and it still gave it all back. So that's the game you're playing with these, right? I don't like those when there's a lot of negative fundamentals, heavy like that, heavy negative fundamentals. You're better off not playing the contrarian game. The contrarian game is often best utilized on smaller time frames when you're working on the broader side of the trend, meaning, like, for example, a contrarian trade on something like this is, that generally the fundamentals are bearish, so you're looking for shorts. Even though this thing is rallying, you're looking for shorts, right? And when that fundamental side starts to assert itself again, then you have this. So you want to work on the side of that. That's where fundamentals can come in to be useful. You want to consider the side of fundamentals, not contrarian to them. In a situation like that. And believe me, I'm the biggest contrarian. Right? I'm the first one to go opposite, because I'm always looking to capitalize on the mistakes of others. That's what you're trying to do as a contrarian. But when you're facing something like this, this is not the place to play the contrarian game. Does that make sense? It's more appropriate for, like, day trades and swing trades and taking advantage of very brief situations. Okay, Glenn from Norway. All right, cool. Good to see you. From Sydney. All right, DW, I didn't realize you were from Sydney. Man, what is it like in Sydney? What is it like, 4:30 a.m. over there or something like that? Man, you're nuts. All right, but welcome. Sherbeck. Okay, all right, cool. Just saying hi here. South Africa. Okay, Ramen. All right, so let me just look at here. So Stian asks, BPRO, USDT. All right, Stian, let's take a look. BPRO, USDT, so against Tether. All right, what's the story there? Let's take a look. Ooh, look at that. Wow, Stian, thanks for bringing this one up. See, this one hasn't been on my radar because my radar has only been consisting of the top tier capitalizations. I have to build another scanner for something like this, but interesting. That looks like news to me, right? Some kind of hype. I mean, look at the bigger picture, right? Just zooming out here on the bigger picture. First of all, definitely want to be aware of these levels, because people clearly, look at this level. That's your next major level right there. People obviously sell there. The 006, right? That's the low. So it's not even a penny. So it's one of these penny coins, whatever I don't even know what to call this, complete garbage coin. Because I mean, how much is this thing right now? It's not even a penny. It's sub penny, and so it's got a nice, interesting move. Um, so I pointed out that resistance, right? You have a resistance there, but you also have this resistance here. Now look at that. That's interesting, right? A lot of time, why is it that when people call these things up and they bring these to my attention, they always bring them to my attention here? I know, Steve, it's not your fault, but you guys need to start bringing these things to my attention when they're here. No, I'm joking. There's no possible way you can do that. But the point is this, unless you're an insider, but the point is this is, if you're looking to buy this thing, that's a bad place to be buying it. If you're long, this is a good place to be selling it, okay, or locking in some profits if you happen to be in from good prices. Otherwise, what do you do in a situation like this? Well, this is a weekly chart, right? You need to see a support level. You need to see a support level. This is a resistance level. So your next support is this old resistance right here. That's what you're looking at. So what is that? Let's see, I can't even read the number. Hold on. There's so many zeros in front of it. You're looking at 00115. Okay, that's the price you're looking at, which is this area right here. You need to give that thing a chance to test that level. So best thing to do, set up a notification on whatever platform you're using for that price, and then stop looking at this thing. Or another thing you can do is wait for, because you don't want to buy this thing, as you know. I mean, Steen, you know, you're a student, so you know better. But one thing you can also wait for is a tight pullback, something like this, right, which can occur in a number of days. Don't get involved in these one candle pullbacks. This often is a result of people getting short, thinking that they know better, and they get squeezed, right? But how many times have we seen situations where they go vertical like that, only to be followed by a corrective move for the next few months? So please keep that in mind. You know, you can look at this level. This is that same level I just pointed out on the weekly, right? You're looking at something like that. Or if you want, you can draw your fib, right? You can do this, and you'll get another level. Basically, it's going to point you to this level here. That's another reference point you can consider for a potential long if you get the proper setup. Does that make sense? And I'm referring to swing trades. Otherwise, there's nothing you can do with this thing but watch it, because buying it here is a bad idea. Does that make sense? So thank you for bringing that one up. Certainly a good one for the radar. But I suspect, I mean, that looks like news to me. That looks like they have a chat room somewhere, and they've been hyping it. That's what that looks like. Okay, DW wants to see Amazon. Amazon? Okay, no one ever asks me for Amazon. Let's take a look. Now, Amazon, keep in mind, Amazon is a market stock. It's usually like a NASDAQ leader, right? It's part of the FANG group. And so whatever the stock market is doing, particularly the NASDAQ, you know, Amazon will often be a reflection of that. So keep that in mind. Now, we saw earlier, we looked at the S&P, we looked at the NASDAQ. There's a double top established, and they may be testing supports, possibly breaking. Look at this, lower high. It's the first thing I see, lower high on Amazon. So that can be problematic. This is a bullish structure, yes, but we have to keep in mind the S&P and NASDAQ. The S&P and NASDAQ also have a bullish structure over the same time. I mean, this thing is highly correlated. It's a follower. But so you have this situation here, right? So technically, interest rates aside, technically, if you're looking for a long, this would be a location for a swing trade long. You have an old resistance, new support. You have a potential double bottom, okay? You have a bullish pin bar. It has to take out the high of the pin bar at 98.20. But now, that's just the chart in isolation. In a situation like Amazon, you have to consider some bigger picture aspects as well. So if, like I said, interest rates continue to rise, it's going to put pressure on the indices, and this is likely to break. So you have to keep that in mind. And there is a lower high here. So lower high often leads to lower low. We don't exactly have a clean cut bullish market. So if you want to go for the long, just realize what you have working against you. Is going long here a bad idea? Well, you're going with the structure, but you're going to need the S&P to agree with you, okay? And you're also going to need the bond market to agree with you for this thing to follow through, to possibly see these levels, right? You're going to need that kind of agreement If you don't get that, then you're likely to see a test of this area, maybe, and failure again, okay? And if the S&P and NASDAQ break their supports, then this thing probably won't go anywhere, and it'll probably break its support and start testing these lower levels. So when you're dealing with something like Amazon, you have to look at the broader market, and you do have to keep the bonds in mind. What's going to play a factor, though, too, is the type of trade. Like what I just described is all for a swing trade. If you're thinking investing, then you really need to think the bond market, because that's really going to imply a longer term view. If you're thinking day trade, then long is justified for sure, right? If you're thinking day trade, because all you're looking for is a couple of points, whatever, 10 points, whatever this thing. I mean, this thing is so cheap now. What does this thing move per day? 98 to 95? Yeah, a couple of points or something like that as a day trader. And it mitigates all the risk that we just talked about on the broader time frame. Does that make sense? So what type of trade you choose to take is going to have a major effect on how your decisions are shaped in terms of reward, risk, and expectations. Okay, Cardano, ADA. All right, so I hope that answers your question about Amazon. All right, so Cardano. So here's the thing with these altcoins. As we looked at with Bitcoin and Ethereum, we actually haven't looked at Ethereum, but I've been over the recent few days, I've spent a lot of time looking at Ethereum and Bitcoin and all the top 10 coins, top 10 capitalizations, because I'm putting together the auto setups. And, Cardano is on that list. So here's the thing. This thing looks pretty much, it's just the Bitcoin move, okay? And actually, my auto setup picked all these up around here. It actually called these like at a great price back, earlier when I was doing my back testing. It called, like Cardano was one of the ones that was called. It made some very interesting calls. Anyway, my point is this. This is following Bitcoin. So these things right now, the short-term trend is generally bullish, okay? Generally, which means long trades can be justified, long setups, like this type of situation. But again, this type of situation is just it's a copy of Bitcoin. So if the signal shows up on Bitcoin, most likely this is going to follow. Right? So we just finished talking about Bitcoin and how Bitcoin is in a pretty rough area, right? As far as resistance goes. Look, same thing with Cardano, right? So buying here is a risky thing to do. This is not a great location. So if you're looking for longs, as long as this general trend stays intact, like I said, it's within reason to look for longs. So you're looking at this level here, okay? A retest of this level, 35, 39, or basically the 35-cent area, if you can get that, okay? If Bitcoin pulls back, you're likely to see that. And you want to see some sort of reversal, preferably a complex reversal like this one. Look at this, right? And Bitcoin shows the same thing. It kind of gave like a single candle situation, pulled back again and gave you the failed low, right? That's kind of what you want to see. That's ideal if you can get that. These are rare. Now look what's happening here. You can sort of argue a similar thing is happening here. And you have the pin bar, right? The problem with this is the location, because this is not a pullback. That's the problem. All right. This is happening at a resistance, not at a support, right? When it happened, when it occurred over here, that was a support level. I mean, look how far back the support dates. We can date that support all the way back to here, okay, back to October. So that was clearly a support level. It was resistance here, became support again, right? This is not a support level. Do you see that? That's how you make that judgment. So even though the setup looks promising, the location is risky, and that's my argument for Bitcoin as well. So I hope that makes sense. If you're interested in a long, either day trade this or just avoid resistance levels. Avoid longs at resistance levels. That's the best thing I can provide you with. Again, I can't tell you how to trade. You have to decide. Maybe you want to be aggressive and look for that breakout. That's just not my style. Okay, USDT, Glenn, are you talking about Tether by itself? Not sure what you mean there, but Tether, I'm not a big fan of Tether. If anyone pays me in Tether, I convert that to dollars right away. Okay. All right. So let me see. What is that? OXZ and Tilray. Do I have that? Do I have that correct? OXZ pop. All right. So I'll take a look at one of those symbols. One symbol per person. OXZ. No, that's not right. Zero, is that a zero? Let's see. X, no. Z. Oh, so maybe this is what you mean? Is this the correct symbol? Let's see. What does that pull up? I don't know. That's not a great looking chart. Let me know if that's correct. That could be the wrong one. Zero XZ. So Silvergate, is that correct? Man, this is first of all, whenever I see charts, if this is the correct chart, okay, yeah, that's it. Silvergate. Maybe there is let me see something. Maybe there's a better one I can look at. Like, let's see, that was from FWB. Maybe I can take a look at this one. Okay, that's a little bit better looking. Same chart, it's just filled in more. All right, so here's the thing. How much is this thing? $17, okay? So right off the bat, all I see here, first of all, I see nothing but lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, break of support. All right, obviously this thing is not doing so well. I see more lower highs. I see resistances respected. Okay, that's what I see here. Look at this move right here. So as we zoom into this thing, not one resistance has really been compromised. All right, it tries, but it just keeps rejecting. This is a tough long. This is not a good choice for longs. When you're looking for longs, you're looking for pullbacks in healthy looking charts, right? Bullish charts. You can say, well, this is bullish. Well, hardly compared to that bigger picture, right? This thing clearly has problems. So you can argue that there's a bullish setup developing. This is sort of an inside bar trying to take out the high of the inside bar, right, on this daily time frame. So you can argue for that, but the thing is, man, you're fighting this thing. So if you're interested in something like this, at least give it the opportunity to test support levels again. This area, your first support really is right here. What is that? 1345, 1350, right? Give it that chance, right? You're fooling around 17 and a half right now. This thing can pull back to $3, especially if we see a pullback in indices like the S&P. You may say, but this has nothing to do with the S&P. Right, it may not. But the thing is, when a global index like the S&P pulls back, it can affect global equities, right? And this thing may feel some pain. So especially, I mean, look at this thing. Look at this chart. This chart's horrendous, right? I mean, there's that weekly chart. Look at this. That's something you want to be long. You know, I know the mentality may be thinking, well, it's at the lowest prices. It can only go higher. It can go to zero. Look at this. So there's nothing healthy about this, right? So just keep that in mind. If you're looking for longs, you're taking a lot more risk because you're going against that bigger picture momentum. If anything, give it a chance to test supports. If anything, try to get it at better prices and smaller size, because that's not a good candidate right there. It's not a good choice. All right, for longs. And the short side, well, yeah, the short side, you can try to play that game because that's the side that it's working on. But you know, be careful of those short squeezes. They can happen, right? So just always be aware of that risk. Okay. Okay, Omiko, hey, no problem. I'm not that active because, okay, sure, it's hard. I understand. I follow you really long time, and I have to say you are one of the only persons giving so. Oh, I appreciate that. I hope sometime. Okay, cool. I appreciate that. Thanks for the nice the kind words. You know, because especially these days, I'm not very well received because I'm too honest. Okay, and people would rather be lied to. People would rather hear that they're going to make millions of dollars with a $5,000 account or a $500 account, and I'm here to tell you how wrong that is. Okay, and there's nothing sexy about what I'm showing you here. I'm showing you levels. I'm trying to give you some perspective. So anyway, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. Okay, so let me move along. Okay. Notorious from Australia, another Australia. I'm going to have to start speaking in my Australian accent, mate. Hello, mate. I'm Australian now. 8 caps from Australia. But the people I speak to over there don't have Australian accents. I'm still in Bitcoin with a runner from 22,250. Give the choppy consolidation. Where would you put a trailing stop? Good question. Let's go back to Bitcoin. Okay. Let's go back to Bitcoin, mate. All right, it's good. It's good. I sound Australian, right? All right. Anyway, better than New Jersey. So you're long from 22. You have a run around from 22,250. Look, that's great. You have a great position. As far as a trailing stop goes, well, here's the thing. Trailing stops can be tricky. Really, what you should use is price structure. But either way, hopefully you're taking something off the table, right? If you're long from a good price, it never hurts to lock in something. I'm going to say that. But this would be one level, but this is probably break even for you, actually below break even. That would be one place for a trailing stop. The next place would be about here, right around there, which is 23,369. But keep in mind, this is kind of close. So trailing stops are not perfect. While they can keep you in the trend, when there's a turn, like if you were trailing this over here, for example, right? If you were trailing this, you would have gotten tapped out on this move. So when you get tapped out on a trailing stop, you're always going to give something back. Please keep that in mind. That's why it's always a good idea to take profits, partial profits, while the thing is working for you. At this point, you're doing great. Let this thing do its job. And if it wants to push into the 25Ks, this thing starts pushing 26, 27. At that point, perhaps it'll give you a new place to trail your stop to. But even in that situation, if the market looks amazing and it's like vertical, take something off the table, right? That's just the only thing I can tell you. The best suggestion: take something off the table along the way, so that when you do get tapped out on that trailing stop, at least you also locked in some great prices by selling at highs. You're never going to top ticket, right? If you do, it's random, right? It's like gambling. So please keep that in mind. So good question. I hope that helps. Another thing you could do with trailing stops. Again, I don't talk about them much. You can also use like a fib level. You could draw something like this, which the 382 puts you right here at that point. So that's a little low. You can use like the one in between, which is what, the 236, which is going to put you somewhere around this level, right? So you can kind of use that as for proportions. You can sort of get a proportional perspective if you don't want to use price structure. Does that make sense? All right. So I hope that helps. Okay. Hey, Peter. No problem. Good to see you. The BTC, okay, cool. Alex, cool. Greetings from, Turkey. All right, Levant, how are you? All right. Do you agree with the strong dollar, weak NASDAQ? Do I agree with strong dollar, weak NASDAQ? All right, well, you can bring up the dollar. Let's take a look. Yes, actually, I do agree with strong dollar, because strong dollar means rising rates. Okay, so let's talk about the dollar. I haven't talked about this in a little while. We had this initial move, okay? And now since that initial move, look, we have consolidation and it's trying to push higher. See that? It's got some resistance here. Look at this, interestingly enough. But this dollar now has a higher low in it. This is a higher low. If that higher low is maintained, this level right here, let me draw a line there. If that level is maintained, which is 102.58, right, and you're looking at rising dollar, that is in line with a rising rate environment, okay? So rising dollar, rising rates puts pressure, bearish pressure on things, companies that need to borrow dollars, right? That's where the pressure comes from. So anyway, good point. And I agree with that. And weaker Bitcoin, yes, I agree with that completely. So that's the whole strong dollar, strong interest rates, or rising rate environment, which is not bullish. That's why all this bullish nonsense and all this bullish sentiment is very suspect, in my opinion. That's why I'm not so quick to jump on board of the, hey, everyone, the new bull market. I'm not so quick to jump on that. Why is there such a strong bond between stocks? Okay, well, I suspect because again, I'm just guessing, but in recent times, the Bitcoin has become more of like an index, right? And a lot of these companies, whether they've invested in Bitcoin or whatever, Bitcoin is also sort of a proxy for gold. Right? And then you have the dollar relationship. So I think it all goes back to the dollar. And that's really what the relationship is, because the market is also going to react the same way as Bitcoin in the face of a strong dollar or a weak dollar. Does that make sense? So I hope I simplified that. That's a very, that kind of question can be a very, can require a more complex answer. But I refer to the dollar relationship. Okay, Matic. All right, let's take a look. So Matic is another one of the top 10 top 10 capitalized coins. I've been looking at Matic too, for the same purposes. And here's the thing with Matic, right? So this thing is jumpy, and it's sort of relatively strong compared to what's going on in the other markets. But you can't chase these things. So again, if you missed like the move off of here, this was a nice move. And again, the broader trend in these, when I say broader, I mean short-term broader trend is bullish. So what to do? Well, again, you're looking for pullbacks because you can't do anything here. Either you're long and you're looking to sell because this is a place to sell. Look at the location. Look at this location. You don't want to be going long up here in this area. You also don't want to be going long up if it touches these areas here. These are bad places for new longs. Good places to take profits, not necessarily go short. Going short is also highly aggressive because people that have opinions and they go, oh, this thing's too high, and you get caught in this thing, right? This is not a time to short either. So something like Matic, at this point, if you're looking for swing trades, you're looking for the higher low. This thing may turn into one, but again, I just pointed out the location. So you need a better level, okay, which would be around 125. This thing's at 147 right now. So you want to see this thing test somewhere between 125 and this low. What is that? 118. That's where you want to see. And you want to see a reversal off of there. Now, just keep something in mind. In that scenario, right, if these things pull back, that means Bitcoin is also pulling back because this thing is not a leader, all right? It's a follower. If Bitcoin pulls back, these things pull back. If Bitcoin breaks for whatever reason, these things will break. And if rates start rising aggressively, which they're not rising aggressively yet, they're rising, but back to levels we've seen. If they start pushing levels we have not seen, these supports are likely to break. So keep that in mind. I could sit here all day long and talk about, oh, buy the support level. Oh, yeah, buy the support level. I sound like another moronic fake guru, right? But the thing is, here's what they won't tell you. This support level can break because we have a fundamental situation taking place that you don't see on this chart. And that could be the bonds, right? So that's what you have to use to make your judgment. If the bonds are not pushing lows and this thing finds that support and you want to give that a try as a swing trade, okay. But if the bonds are pushing lows, I would anticipate these supports to break. So you have to use your judgment. And that's like one of the things that I'm trying to explain further as I produce instructions for my auto setups. That's one of the things I'm going to put in there to really reiterate that you do have to use your judgment, right? You can't just let something produce some kind of signal in isolation and trust it. You have to use some judgment. The human mind right now is still better than a screener because you can see things or account for things that the screener is not accounting for. Does that make sense? Okay. So thanks for asking. Can you analyze Citigroup? Sure. All right, hold on. Let me check TradingView here. Let me not forget about these guys. All right, hold on. So NEO. Okay. NEO, is that NEO the NEO? Is that the coin? I'm guessing that's the coin. Or it's a NASDAQ. Is that the NASDAQ? Right, because the coin is NIO, I believe, right? Is this right? NEO? Or is it NEO Performance Materials? No, it must be the NASDAQ. All right, let's take a look. This is Neo Genomics. Is that correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. All right, so look at that. And that thing looks like an altcoin. See, these biotech or pharmaceutical type of stocks, these have a tendency to do their own thing because they're dependent more on like FDA approvals and things that aren't so correlated to the S&P, right? So interestingly, look how badly this thing's been beaten up. How high was this thing? All right, so at one time, this thing was at $52, and right now we're breaking 13. So this thing has gotten beat up significantly, right? So interestingly enough, look where you are. It's compromised a resistance level, a pretty significant resistance level, and it looks like it closed pretty strong through that level. All right, so something like that, that's a breakout, and this is not exactly the best environment for breakouts, right? So you have to be careful. If you're a breakout trader, you have a qualified breakout there, but your risk is going to be high because this area is highly likely to see a fake out, right? This area right here, where exactly where it's in, it's a high probability fake out area. So you have to decide if you want to get involved in that. If you're thinking about that, you have to also decide, well, how far, if I get long, how far can it reasonably go? Well, you're going to have to look up in this area right here. This is basically some old support attempts, like this area right here, right? There's some support. You're looking at possibly something like that. But if there's any conflicting signal before it gets there, again, the broader trend on this thing is generally bearish, okay? The long-term trend. The midterm trend, you can argue, is a consolidation. The short-term trend, you can argue, is bullish. You have a higher low. It's going for the higher high. But if that failed low occurs, you have to do something. You have to adjust your risk, take the loss, get out, do something, all right? That's how I would treat something like this. If this was an index, I would be looking to short it if I got the sell signal. It's an aggressive short, but I'm not telling you to short it. I'm just saying that's what I'd look for in something like that if it was an index, not a stock. So keep that in mind. You have to decide. If you want to be more conservative with something like this, then you can look at this area for support, okay, which is around the $9, $10, I guess you could say $10 area, if it can pull back to $10. So keep that in mind. These things often don't maintain these straight lines like this, right? Look for a pullback. A minor pullback would be back to this area here, which is around 11 and a quarter or something like that, maybe 12 even, somewhere around there. Okay, you're fooling around 13. So any little noisy little pullback may give you an entry opportunity for a swing trade if you don't want to get caught up, in this breakout. I don't like breakout trades, by the way. And we're also not in a full-blown bullish market. Now, like I said, these things are less correlated, so it could be driven by some kind of FDA approval or something like that. But still, you have to know your levels and measure your risk from those levels. All right, that's what this game is all about, not profits. All right, so please keep that in mind. Okay, good question about NEO. Hopefully that was the right stock. If not, that's a decent looking situation. All right, it just depends on how you're going to play that. Could you check out Carvana? What is that, Roger? Carvana. I'm just going to type in the name. Carvana, CVNA. Is that correct on the NYSE? Is this the correct stock? This is the weekly chart. Oh man, this chart looks horrible. I mean, damn, look at this. At one time, this thing was worth $376, and today it's worth 11 and a quarter. Is that right? Oh man. Yeah, not a good idea. So look, I see people are looking, I guess you're looking for a bargain or something. Well, you're certainly not buying the high, that's for sure. So here's the thing. Obviously, they've got problems, okay? Or they were overvalued. This thing is pulling back. Look, you have this looks very similar to Bitcoin, does it not? You have this bullish attempt, right? And that's been correcting a bit. Okay, cool. You have a pullback. So if you're thinking of a swing trade, I can see your point. All right. As far as the swing trade goes, you have a low right around here. That's around $10, 10 even. If you get the inside bar over the next couple of days and it takes out the high, or it takes out this high right here, which is 1272, you have yourself a new long signal. Okay. And in fact, this is a pretty crystal clear wave count, just like, looks very similar to Bitcoin, right? 1, 2, this section right here is 3, this is 4. So it's reasonable to anticipate a wave 5 to here, right? Just it's the same exact situation, same setup as Bitcoin. So that's within reason. What price is that? $17.32. So if you're looking for a swing trade, if you're looking to play that game, okay, you can make that argument. But if it breaks this support, if it breaks that $10 area, then leave this thing alone, because this thing looks bad to begin with. Okay, so maybe there's some temporary whatever recovery. Who knows why? It doesn't matter why. The point is you have some kind of structure here. I don't know how correlated this is to the market, because look, the whole market rallied pretty much in January, so maybe this got a little piece of that. I don't know what their debt situation is like. But if rates are rising, not good for companies like this, right? That may explain part of their valuation reset, if you want to call it that. All right, so you have your bullish argument. Just keep in mind the risks, okay? Keep in mind the risks. Good question on Carvana. Thank you for mentioning. Okay, Anyone know what is happening to XAU market? 1 hour and a half, no signal. XAU, are you talking about gold? Let's take a look. XAU, USD. Well, this market may be closed today. Is it closed? This thing isn't closed. It says it's open. But today was a market holiday, so I don't know. I don't know really if that affects gold. You have a bullish pin bar to go long. Nice bullish setup there in gold. Interestingly enough, at a support level. So I kind of like that. That might be worth a call on XAU USD. All right. Let me see what else. NEO USD. NEO. So I had got the wrong NEO. NEO USD. Is this the NEO you're talking about? Oh man, I spent all that time. That's why you guys got to be clear, man. You guys got to tell me this is the correct NEO. You guys got to be correct on the. If you just put one part of the symbol, I'm going to look at the stock. Oh, look at that. Well, again, that looks like news. Whenever you see vertical like this, that's news. All right, most likely. That's people are jumping on board some kind of hype train. That's herd mentality. All right. Again, straight into resistance. So if that's news, there's nothing you can do with something like that. Okay. You can't buy this because if you buy this, you're playing a very risky game. You're buying into an area where insiders or people who know better are likely to sell it to you. So you're taking the risk off their hands, first of all. And if you think that this thing is just going to do this, vertical like that, while anything is possible, the probability of something like this is extremely low. So you're playing a losing game, okay? If you're looking for longs. Again, just like some of those other ones that we pointed out, like we looked at earlier, was it Matic? Look for the pullback. That's all you can do in these situations. I remember back, 2021, when we had just constant examples of this. Like every coin looked like this. And I kept telling people, don't buy these highs. And those were all-time highs. Don't buy the highs. Don't buy the highs. Wait for a pullback. So look for supports. Here's your support. $12, $10, between $10 and $12. Look for a test of that before doing anything else. Okay? If Bitcoin breaks, these things aren't going to go anywhere. These are just temporary, whatever this is. So I don't know what the news is, but I'm willing to bet there's some hype somewhere. There's some nonsense somewhere. Don't get sucked into these. Okay, thank you for bringing it up, though. What do you think of the big banks like JP Morgan warning against sharp decline of stock prices? They say the market is quite overheated at the moment and will correct. Okay, well, first of all, whenever big banks say something, I never believe them. Okay, that's the first thing. Never trust them. They're not out to help you. They're not out to do anyone any favors. So, why they'd come out with something so bearish, I don't know. So take it with a grain of salt, first of all. If it's true, I mean, Bitcoin will suffer. If the stock market suffers, Bitcoin is likely to suffer. And if the stock market, so they say it's overheated. I mean, we looked at the NASDAQ earlier. This doesn't exactly look overheated. This is a weekly. I mean, on this chart, maybe you can argue a bit because it's vertical. But I mean, we look at the daily chart, it's trying to pull back, right? So, I mean, are they going to be nice enough to let us in on and let us know that the market's going to pull back from here? I don't know. Never trust institutions ever when they come out with public information like that because they're not there to do us any favors. They usually have an agenda. So you can go back to the analysis that I mentioned before on these things. I mean, I'm generally bearish, and I'm bearish because of the bond market, okay, not because of what the big banks say. And I believe that the coins will suffer if the bonds continue to push new lows, which they haven't done yet. Again, the bond market can turn around and rates may come off again, right? We have some economic news this week. Maybe they'll advance the bond market or turn it the other way. We have to see how that goes. Okay. Ridiculous move. Okay, yeah. Hi, Frank, from Greece. All right, welcome. Okay, cool. Neo coin. Okay, got you. So you see, you guys, you got to be specific on those coins. All right, so I got Neo, check Neo. Man, this guy's hungry for Neo. Don't be buying that high, man. Okay, and I concur. Looking for, okay, no problem. All right, you guys, Citigroup. I forgot Citigroup. So here's Citigroup, the bank. Okay, speaking of banks. So look, banks are funny because theoretically they should do well in a rising rate environment, and they should also do well in a in a not rising rate environment, right? They're the ones that lend the money. So banks are weird that way. I don't know. I don't fully understand the situation. But here's the thing. They say the financial sector usually leads the market. This is the weekly on Citigroup. I mean, look at the higher low. It's got another higher low developed here. Buy signal trying to develop on the weekly. It's trying to take out a resistance level here. It's interesting. But here's the thing. You have more, look at all this resistance, right, that you have ahead of it. So if the stock market sells off, again, I mean, usually the banking sector is a heavy weight in that. And we can see back here, right, all this time as rates started to assert themselves, I mean, the banking sector sold off and the market sold off. The banking sector is trying to recover. Does it recover? Yes or no? I don't know. It's trying. It hasn't cleared the way yet, but this would be an interesting thing to watch. If Citibank can clear all of this and the other banks can follow along, perhaps that would be some sort of bullish sign. But I don't know. If rates continue lower, it's going to be hard for me to believe that this thing is going to want to continue. Okay, so just something to keep in mind. That's the weekly chart. You notice I pull up weekly charts for all this because that's really where you want to get your broader perspective first and get bigger picture levels before you get all caught up with, oh, look at this, a bull market, right? You want to be careful with that. You want to get that bigger picture perspective first. Does that make sense, you guys? So, all right, good questions. I covered everyone over there. Do I have any other questions? Okay, cool. So again, if you liked my video, please press the like button and also press the subscribe also. That's also helpful. I'm going to leave it here. If you have any questions, you guys know where to find me. Again, I am not streaming on Wednesday. All right, so enjoy the rest of your day or the rest of your evening, wherever you are in the world. And thank you very much for watching.